So we're going to start out this morning with Doug Gordon from Dustrol, talking about hot-in-place recycling. Doug graduated from Kansas State University with a BS degree, also from Fort Hays State with an MS in Education Administration. He's worked for Blue Construction for 14 years, Pavement Solutions for 2 years, Dustrol for 5 years, and he taught school for 16 years. So with that, I'll let Doug take it away.
As I go through this presentation, I got 30 minutes, and I'm a yacker, so I'll try to get through to, if you have questions, you can either ask as we go, or if you want to wait till the end, that's fine. But I told yesterday when Dr. Cross came in, I said, you know what? There's a lot of smart people in this room, and I just think the sharing and things that you pick up as you go through this, share and gain as much knowledge as you can, and hopefully when you get home, you know, something kind of, the light flips on, and you can do new things. We're, like I said yesterday, Dustrol was started in 1973 as a dust control, and then it's gone from that to what we are today. And we're one of the larger hot-in-place recycle companies in the United States. And we've got a lot of equipment, and our running season usually runs from April 1st into the first part of October. And a lot of people put chip seals on top of us. So we kind of follow chip seal seasons. But there's some other things that we'll discuss while we go through here. There's a cover material that goes on top of us at some point in time. But we'll start, and like I said, if you have questions or something, go ahead and ask, or we'll wait. And I may get in your way watching that, but if I do, just tell me to get out of the way, because I need to move around. The first 5 or 6 slides that you'll take a look at is with the surface recycling of a 1-inch process, which is refer to as a heater scarification. This is what Dustrol started using when they got into the business, and it's gone from 1 inch to 2 inches, but we'll start with the 1. It's a heating, reworking, rejuvenating the top 1 to 3 inches of the existing asphalt pavement in preparation for either a fog seal, microsurfacing, Nova chip, asphalt overlay, or a chip seal, or other surface treatments. We do not, and I repeat, do not push any one product on top of us. These have all worked, and they're all used on top of us. So if you ask me what you recommend, I want to tell you, there's your choice. We don't want to get in a position to where we're doing stuff that we're not supposed to be doing, so we just don't push anybody. It's a continuous process, self-contained train. We heat the surface at approximately 300 degrees. It softens the pavement, scarified to the depth of 1 inch to 1.5 inches. It's emulsion metered by a design content. I don't know if you're familiar with Road Science, but they do all of our mix designs in the Midwest, and that's how we're told or determined as to how much emulsion we're going to put back into the mix. We use Western testing out of New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, when we work over on the west side of our territory. Let's see, recycled mix is placed with a paver with vibratory screeds. Then the mat's compacted and the surface is applied. And again, if needed, there are the choices that people have chosen to put on top of us. This is just the setup of our train. When you see the other one, you'll understand between this and train. But all the first 4 here, the first 3 vehicles are what we call a heater. And what it does, it starts heating the surface, and in this particular process, we think that we can get it heated with 3 if we need to. If it has a lot of crack seal material, then we'll add another heater. And so we'll have 4 heaters. Then we have the scarifier. This is the scarifying unit right here. And these are the scarifying tines, excuse me, right here. And this is what the actual surface that we've scarified that we'll add an ARA 1P. It's got 1% polymer in it. And then it'll go ahead and runs the material through our laydown machine, and that makes up our 1-inch scarification process. It's pretty economical, really. We use this process a lot in the cities. We do a lot of city work in New Mexico. Hobbs, New Mexico does anywhere between 600 to 800,000 square yards every year with this process. Roswell City has come on board. City of Albuquerque does a lot. Farming, New Mexico, a lot. And Kansas, KDOT, they do a lot of this, plus the 2-inch. The mix design, like I said, comes from road science, and KDOT, when it first got started, and where we came about by having a starting point, is 20 hundredths of a gallon per square yard, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when we get into roads that have chip seals, we've been known not to put any oil, new oil, because the chip seal oil is already there. But KDOT used that for a starting point, and just this last bid letting, they have written into their spec that they're going to go to 35 hundredths or 40 hundredths per gallon per square yard. So we get a lot of oxidized roads, a lot of cracked roads, roads with crack seal material. So we needed a starting point, and so that's where we come up with our emulsion start. Now this is, I guess, kind of our claim to fame is the 2-inch process. We're actually 900 feet long when we get out and get set up to go. And we run from almost sun up to sundown. Does a pretty decent job. And we've got 3 of these trains out working. And like I said yesterday, we've got enough equipment sitting in the yard that we could run 3 more of them. So the boss would like to get more of them out of the yard and on the road. And so hopefully some of this might be pretty interesting to you, and we can visit further. First vehicle in the line is just a preheater, and all it does starts heating 280 to 300 degrees, and that's all its purpose is. Then the next is the first milling heater, which will continue to heat the surface and removes the first layer, lift of material. Then it windrows it, and then it goes, it'll windrow that material, and it'll go into the next heater. Tunnel heater windrows the material from the milling heater going under a tunnel heater, and the heat is transferred underlying pavement into the windrow itself. You can see right here, this is the first 1/2 inch of material that's going into that tunnel heater. And all that tunnel heater does is continue to keep that material hot. This is a little piece of equipment that you guys are going to be privileged to. There's not very many people know what's under there, but it's like a wedge. And what it does, when we take that material under there, it'll split it out, leaves a 1/2 inch of material. But as it's going through the process, that new surface that we're getting ready to heat, so we can go ahead and mill it, it spreads that out, and then when it comes out the back of the tunnel heater, it's back into a windrow. And that's how that material keeps at a constant temperature. This gentleman's one of our operators. You'll notice that we have no drivers in our trucks. It's all done by remote control, and they have a little hand pack that's got, they can speed up, slow down, turn right, turn left, and so this way we can keep them out of traffic, put them on the safe side of a road, and we still have to be really safe, but they're not out in the traffic area. Dustrol uses a paver equipped with two counter-rotating augers that reblend material. That's delivered behind the screed. This significantly helps reduce segregation of the material. How many of you in here have ever been around, driven through a project that does hot in place? Oh, good. Okay. We run 25 people on a crew. 6 of them stand behind the screed and behind the laydown machine. And if you see them with a shovel and they're resting or they're not doing anything, that's good. When you see them with the shovel and they're working it, something's gone wrong with the mix, whether we've got chunks of crack seal material, or where we had some coal mix maybe that would get under that screed. Well, they're digging it out, getting rid of it, and then they'll go up in the hopper and they'll bring a new shovel full of material. They'll put it in the road, and then when we roll it, you won't be able to tell that there was anything as a problem or whatever. But if they're not doing anything, that's good. This particular road was in MoDOT on I-35. Probably wasn't a good candidate, but they wanted to do it, so we went ahead and fired up, and away we went. You want a little background on Dustrol and work? I'm sure Joe would be glad to visit with you as well. But this is pretty much typical, maybe not quite as much cracking. This thing, it turned out really well. That's what it looked like when we were done. This was a KDOT Highway 160. Again, you can see how oxidized it is. It's cracked up. These are candidates that we get. NDOR, which now is Nebraska Department of Roads. They changed the name. It's Department of Transportation now. Their governor has taken on the airports now as part of the Nebraska Department of Transportation title. So, but this is another one, another road, 2-lane rural. This is our system that we did 2 years ago in Kansas. This is an aerial shot, as you can tell. One of our guys had a buddy that wanted to try it out, so he brought it out, and this is what we got. But there's the train. Everything's lined up behind it from the beginning back to the end of it. So it's we're trying to get a better picture of what we're trying to do, but we thought at the time it was pretty good. So the emulsion is added. Back at the back of this, where you saw those two big black tanks on our last piece of equipment, that's where the emulsion is added to it. And if we get to where we're putting in 40 hundredths or more, then we'll split that up. And the unit before that, we'll start adding the emulsion. And then the second one, we'll add the rest of it, and then it's all mixed together. It continually mixes. When it goes into the hopper, that's all mixed, stays mixed, and then it goes out behind the laydown machine. That part of it's done. Anybody got any questions? I got some other stuff I want to talk to you about, but yes, sir.
Yeah, in the previous slide you said it wasn't a good candidate. Was that because of the reflective cracking that was in there? Or
There was a lot of cracking.
you're concerned about that just mitigating through then? Again, if you've done...
At some point, yeah, they will. A crack's going to come back at some point, and like I said yesterday, we're not taking minimal work from the hot mix guys. I mean, they're good people, but when they see a Dustrol or some other HIR, company working, or the only reason I say that is we're not using very much emulsion, and so we're just wanting just a little sliver of the pie, and but it all seems to be working, really well. You should get 8 to 10 years when you cover it, and spec-wise, some of your states, and I think I can say this with no problem. I don't know that you have a spec yet. And we have one for Kansas, Oklahoma, Nebraska, Texas, and Missouri. What they do is someone, you may ask, well, where do we get a spec? We'll be able to send you send you 2 specs that are already put together, and then you can make your own, build your own spec. We work in Tennessee. They wanted an ARA 3P, and I think just for no other reason was to be able to identify from the rest. And so when we go there, they do the mix designs, they do the coring, they do the mix designs, and then they send to us, whoever gets the work, and we've had it all in the last 3 years, but that way they know, we know the emulsion that we're going to use. And we're running an Ergon emulsion everywhere but in New Mexico, Colorado. We're using Holly Frontier out of Albuquerque. And so, but we're not opposed to using something else, but at this point, sir?
You mentioned the crack filler before. Is there like a limit of how much you can deal with, or how do you actually deal with that as you're kind of going through?
Good question. I say we, Dustrol, myself, and Don Johnson in the back, and Aaron Hanson, the three of us are on the road. And you call and say, hey, when can you come look at a road? I got a road that's 10 miles long, 2-lane, 4-lane, whatever. When can you come look at it? And so we'll go look at it, and then we'll evaluate it with you. Even though if this is the first one you've done, we really like to be there and go look at it with you, just so we're all on the same page. Because if we get in and you guys let a project and you got base failures, and like you say, you're asking about crack seal material, if there's an overabundance of that, then we need to evaluate, how much is there. And if you're going to have to spend a lot of money to repair any base failures, we're probably going to say, we'd love to do a job for you, but why don't you spend your money somewhere else, and then we can look for something else. But those are the things. Base failures are really, really important. We were in Oklahoma. We worked down by McAllister, Oklahoma 3 years ago over some old concrete that had started to shove. They had 4 areas where they went in, went full depth, shaved off the heave section, and used their normal patch material and filled it up, and we recycled it. And something else too is we found that, like when we were in Oklahoma, that over the years they kept adding onto the shoulders or onto the driving lanes, and they got out past where the original end of that road was, and the inspector had a little concern about when we went to check our compaction numbers. Well, they weren't as good as they were inside that. Well, it just happened that they were going down to McAllister to have a DE meeting, and the state materials and the state engineer for Oklahoma happened to go through the project and stopped. And they were talking about compaction numbers, and before he even looked at anything, he said, well, you're not going to get the same numbers out that far. They added a foot over the years. And he said, well, you won't get them that, because there wasn't anything stable underneath there. They just laid it on the shoulder, original shoulder. So, those are things that we have to look for, and it doesn't cost anything to have us come and core for you and to tell you. I pick on Oklahoma a little bit, but there's nobody here from there. But anyway, they wanted us to go core some 3 roads for them, and we said, well, what do you got underneath it? How deep is it? How thick? Oh, it's probably 6 inches. Well, it turned out to be 8, but it had fiber 2 inches down. When we get in there, and with this process, it's not as bad as if you're going to mill. Actually go in with a big milling machine, but we have to have at least 5 good inches. 4 is pushing it, but 5 is what we would prefer. That gives us enough material, and we need to get down underneath that second layer. So we have good contact, and the surface underneath there is a little bit rough, and then we can go ahead because we don't tack anything. We haven't had to, and so the more coring, the more testing, road inventory, you would be amazed at how many people that we look at roads with and core that have absolutely no idea what they've got under there. And then we're going down there running our machines. We weigh 100,000 pounds per machine. We got 8 of them, so we're pretty heavy. And if we fall through somewhere, you're going to come back and say, Mr. Contractor, how are you going to fix that? And we said, well, we probably should have known that before we got there and got to going, but in the coring process or in your non-inventory, you didn't know, and we didn't find it. So, normally the buying agent will take care of that. But, it's just something that a delay, and once we get going, we're in and out. We'll do 3.5 miles a day. So we don't tie up traffic very long. Run a pilot car on the 2 lanes. So All these things need to be, brought to the forefront. We need to know, you guys need to know, and I'm sure you've got people that have been there 15, 20 years that say, oh yeah, I'll go down to Joe's house and take a right. Well, you go down and take a right, then you fall through. Nobody knew that they had problems with water or whatever over the years, and this guy's gone, and so just make sure you keep a good record of your street, road inventory, so when you choose to do an HIR or whatever, people know what's under there. And we are not the only hot-in-place recycle company in the United States. Cutler out of Lawrence, Kansas, he's got a little different process, but I just thought I would touch base with. He can do they mill a 1 inch, then they come in and they'll do their process. They'll scarify it, heat it, lay it, and then they're able to add new mix. They start it at the front of their train, and it goes on a conveyor belt back to the back and drops. And it's a good process as well. Then there's one in Illinois, and there's another one in Colorado, and those are the only 3 that I know right off the top of my head. And the system is really, really, really good. Just make sure that whoever does it has the right equipment. And there's 2 guys, one guy in Nebraska and one in Kansas, that bought a different system, and it didn't work. So I hate to see somebody spend $5 or $6 million.
Air quality issues in urban areas?
No, we haven't had any, none. I'm almost on over, but we'll answer your question and I'll get out of here. But it doesn't matter if and there's a lot of you guys in here that you're the decision makers. When we do, you have a patch, and it's either got diesel or kerosene in it, your boss will come out and we'll hit that, and it'll send up the biggest black smoke signal that you've ever seen. That's the only thing that we've ever had an issue with. And if we know that, then we can shut the oilers off. So when we do go through that, we won't have all that black smoke and everything else. We'll have some white, some of that's moisture, but that's pretty much the way that runs. And there is a 7 to 21 day cure, and then you can put on whatever you guys are interested in.
How do you deal with manhole utility holes?
With the big unit, we can't, but with the 1 inch, those prongs on the back, when they hit that manhole, they'll pop them up. Because otherwise, if we hit it with this big outfit, we're going to do some damage to your stuff and to ours. So that's a good question.
You mentioned that when you are adding the rejuvenator, that you might add it in 2 different shots. Do you do any mixing in between those?
We do not, no. It's all mixed. When it adds that first amount, it mixes with that material that's under it and sends it on back. And then when it gets to the last one, it rejuvenates, puts the emulsion in there, and it mixes it, and the whole thing is mixed together. And then it goes into the hopper and is laid on the road. I do appreciate your time, and I hope you got something out of the hot-in-place recycle. It's a good deal. We like it. Help us out.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.